So today I want to talk about the Senate Parliamentarian. If you're not familiar with the role of a Senate Parliamentarian, then you're probably in good company. The good majority of people I've spoken with, myself included actually, had not even heard of the position until it became relevant in the conversation over a $15 minimum wage. So with that said, I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about the position and discuss why it exists, what its purpose is, and more importantly, why it has any sort of power or say in the current debate over a $15 minimum wage. Finally, I'd like to conclude by talking about what the Democrats can do as alternatives to the current decision of the Senate Parliamentarian. So, one thing I need to address is that if you're from outside the US, you are probably familiar with the definition of parliamentarian, which is that of member of parliament, which would translate to members of the House or Senate in the United States. That is not the definition being used. In the United States, a parliamentarian is actually an advisory position and advises the interpretation of the rules and precedents of the Senate or House of Representatives. The House has its own parliamentarian and the Senate has its own, and so we're going to be spending time talking about the Senate parliamentarian in this particular video. Now, the roles of the position, were originally performed by members and clerks of the Senate to discuss procedural issues. And the position became more and more complex, and they decided to put a single person in charge of that position. And in 1935, the Senate created the office of the parliamentarian and was given to a person then. We've only had about 5 people in history to hold that title, and the position is meant to be one that is nonpartisan. So it's just supposed to go over the rules and regulations and precedents of how parliamentary procedures are supposed to be put forward in the Senate and how we follow those guidelines and rules. So it's not supposed to really have any power or any say over actual, legislation. So why does it in this particular case? Well, in the current situation, Bernie Sanders, as head of the budget in the Senate, has used a loophole to avoid the filibuster. This loophole is known as budget reconciliation. Now, budget reconciliation is basically a tool that can be used to say the budget needs to be reconciled. We need to come to some sort of financial decisions. We cannot afford to deal with a filibustered Senate. We have to get something done, and we have to get the money passed. It's an expediency ability for the Senate to actually get stuff done. Now, the role of the Senate parliamentarian comes in because the Senate parliamentarian deals with the rules and precedents and guidelines. So by using this rule, the Senate parliamentarian now has the power and authority to say what is available for budget reconciliation. And in this case, the current Senate parliamentarian, Elizabeth McDonough, has basically come out and said that the federal minimum wage increase from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour does not meet the strict requirements of reconciliation. She has made the decision that the federal minimum wage increase cannot be part of the Biden coronavirus relief package. So basically, the Democrats have been put in this position where, because the Republicans and possibly Senator Joe Manchin wouldn't vote in favor of this policy and would filibuster it to death, the entire relief package, they had to go through budget reconciliation. Now going through budget reconciliation, the Biden administration, trying to put forward the $15 minimum wage, has been met with Elizabeth McDonough basically saying it does not belong in the bill and cannot be put forward in the Senate. Now, this is a problem for a number of reasons. Elizabeth McDonough is supposed to be a nonpartisan interpreter of the chamber rules. She's not supposed to have any sort of political agenda. But the unfortunate reality is this decision-making process actually stops a partisan policy. The Democrats are the ones trying to put this forward, while the Republicans are trying to stop it from moving forward. And more importantly, much more importantly, a policy that is required at this point in the US for people to actually be able to make a decent living. even remotely a decent living, because $15 an hour is still probably not enough right now. Furthermore, Elizabeth McDonough is not elected. She's unelected. She's appointed by the Senate Majority Leader and makes $170,000 a year on top of it. So an unelected woman who makes $170,000 a year is getting to determine whether or not we get a $15 minimum wage. And that is a huge problem. So what can be done about this? What is the responses that we have available to us? Well, the most extreme response, which does have some credence and validity, was put forward by Ilhan Omar, who basically said we should abolish the filibuster and replace the parliamentarian. If you abolish the filibuster, you remove one of the inroads into getting the $15 minimum wage. The Senate could function without it, and that you could have 51 votes do this without budget reconciliation. The parliamentarian wouldn't have any say or anything, involved. And we could just move forward. There's pros and cons to the filibuster debate, and I think it's beyond the scope of this video. But in terms of replacing the parliamentarian, that's certainly an option that is on the table. It has been done before. The Republicans used it almost 20 years ago in order to pass a bunch of legislation based on tax cuts, and they were able to get it through. So replacing the parliamentarian is an option. However, the Biden administration and Biden himself are unlikely to want to do anything to overturn that ruling and decision. The problem is that the Biden administration and Biden himself are always going to take this position where they're going to say, oh, well, the rules didn't work. We tried our best. Okay, sorry. But in this case, with as many people suffering as there are out there, there needs to be change. There needs to be policy put in place. And if the Republicans are stopping this, the Democrats need to take every advantage to move forward. So one other alternative that the Democrats have is to just overrule her and ignore her decision. Technically speaking, all she is doing, McDonough, is providing an advisory role. The issue is that Kamala Harris, being the leader of the Senate in this case, can overturn that decision. But the problem is that Senator Joe Manchin, who again pretends to be a Democrat but is actually a Republican, has vowed to oppose going against the parliamentarian, which means anything that is attempted by the Democrats is going to be stopped, which just shows the problems of the way the Senate is run in order to stop any policy from going forward. Senate has not gotten anything done in so many years for the benefit of people and is a strictly undemocratic institution that does not serve the people and does not work. And the entire workings of it need to be overhauled. It's not just a patch or a fix that needs to be put in place. The entire thing, in my opinion, needs to either be scrapped or reworked because it is not serving the needs of people. So the only other thing that we can do outside of attempting to try to either remove the parliamentarian or try to convince Joe Manchin to allow her to just be overruled, and try to get the $15 minimum wage that's been promised out there, is Bernie Sanders has actually tried to put forward an alternative plan to get around the decision by implementing penalties and incentives to push companies to have higher wages. So basically, since we can't get the minimum wage pushed, there's been a desire by Bernie Sanders to try to put forward alternative plans that can try to, get maybe companies like Walmart and Amazon to increase their own minimum wages within their companies by providing incentives and penalties, respectively, to these companies so that people will actively get a higher wage. And if they're given a higher wage, and over time it doesn't destroy or tank these companies, there's a possibility of convincing Congress in the future. The real issue in all of this with the Senate parliamentarian is that this advisory role is actually having too much power because of the budget reconciliation process. The budget reconciliation process has too much power and exists because the filibuster is an issue. And the filibuster is an issue because the Republicans and Joe Manchin will not, deal with what's best for the people and are leaving most of the Democrats, including the establishment ones, in this bad place. And the establishment Democrats are not willing to rock the boat and change the status quo. So we, as the people, are left watching going, well, what are we supposed to do? As the $15 minimum wage doesn't get passed, as most of the policies that should have been put forward are not passed, as nothing of real substantial change is happening. And the only thing that I can see moving forward to push anything in this direction is to get more progressives into office, to get more people who are progressives, who are social democrats, who are even leftists, to start going into electoralism and start changing the way the system works. Because if we don't start making these changes from within, we are just going to sit here and watch fascism take over. We are going to see the shift in perspective of this country, as by the time we reach 2022 and 2024, there's a good possibility that the Republicans might take the House and Senate back. And if they do, we are on a road that I don't know if we're going to recover from. So it's strange that this conversation about a position that is largely unheard of has so much value in terms of the larger political discourse. The Senate Parliamentarian is a position that I didn't even know existed until a few days ago, but it's yet another built-in factor of the system to prevent actual real change from happening when we reach these weird fringe cases that we keep having to reach towards because nothing is getting done because Congress is functionally broken. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and bell for notifications. You can follow me on Twitter or check out my Discord in the description down below. My name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope you enjoyed watching.